Uh, Now we move on to a presentation about education. And I would like to invite my student and colleague, Dr. Carlos Galvilondo, to join me. We're going to be presenting an article that we authored recently, like a couple of months ago. It was published actually like 2 weeks ago. The article is titled Challenges in the Professionalization of Higher Education in Ecuador, Lessons Extrapolated from the Japanese Experience. So basically what we did is that we compared the experiences of Ecuador and Japan and how they improved their higher education in the last 30 years to see what can we learn from the Japanese experience and apply it to Ecuador. Very different countries, obviously, different parts of the world, but the whole point is to try to find out best practices. How can Ecuador learn from Japan, and what has Ecuador done that has worked and hasn't worked? So I'm going to present the theoretical framework, introduce the topic, and then Dr. Galvilondo will present the part about Ecuador, and I will conclude with the part about Japan. So basically, one of the challenges in higher education is how to afford a qualified core of professors. It's one of the challenges. Many countries have increased the requirements to be able to teach at the college level. For many years in Latin America, it was possible to teach with a bachelor's. That started to change in the 1980s, 1990s. Many of those countries passed laws to require a master's to teach at the undergraduate level. And recently, they're requiring a PhD to teach at the master's, of course, and doctoral level. But the problem is, number one, how do you pay for that? And how do those professors access the education that they need in order to get those doctorates? So the laws and the requirements were not keeping the pace with the availability of the doctoral programs. As a result of that pressure, many professors who were career professors, tenured professors, they found themselves in this bind. How do I, after 20, 30 years of career, get a doctorate? Who's going to pay for it, number one? Do I have to move to another country to study when I already have a family, I'm settled already in a part of my country? What to do? And that's where Japan comes in. Japan, they went through the Meiji Revolution, of course, in the 19th century. They were the first non-Western country to industrialize. And the way they did it was the way they still do it today. They basically learn from the best. The Japanese are very good at reverse engineering. So they send their students to the top schools, Oxford, Cambridge, of course, Heidelberg in Germany, Harvard here in the US. They went back over there and they took what they learned and they applied it to their imperial universities. Tokyo University, Kyoto University, pretty much their flagship universities. But in addition to that, they needed to have not only funding, but also an incentive structure that would help those professors aim for a doctorate, that would actually give them an incentive to focus on the academic career. And Japan was very good at that. They invested a lot in making the profession of the professor be a well-paid career. Employment stability, very low turnover rates, this was one thing. And something else is that Japan invested a lot in research. So they combined the three pillars basically of academia, which is service, research, and teaching. They found a balance, and they have done very well in terms of the rankings. Now, one of the challenges that Japan has today in terms of higher education is that they have an inverted pyramid when it comes to demographics. Their population is aging. So early on, they realized that this was going to happen in the 1990s, early 2000, and what they did is that they wanted to become a hub for international students. So they realized that their own young people, they're going to be fewer and fewer because of the aging population. They have a labor shortage. So why not make Japan a very attractive place for foreign students to study there? Why not make Japan a hub for graduate studies? And that way take advantage of their infrastructure, their great location in East Asia, and so on. And they were successful in doing it. Some of their universities, like Tokyo University, they rank among the highest in the world. And most of their grad school programs are actually taught in English, which is something else that was very innovative about the Japanese. So now let's talk about what Ecuador has done and how that can be somehow modified by applying some lessons from Japan. Dr. Galvilondo, go ahead.
Good afternoon. My English not very good. I speak Spanish as and Dr. Otto translator. No problem.
I'll be translating.
Okay. A mí me tocó vivir una experiencia en Ecuador como docente universitario durante 4 años. Llegué a Ecuador en el año 2013. Había en esos momentos una transformación en la educación superior. Hasta entonces Ecuador era un país donde los docentes universitarios primero no conocían nada de investigación, de producción científica, no los motivaba, no les interesaba y no se aglutinaba esa actividad dentro de los centros universitarios.
So he's saying that he arrived in Ecuador in 2013, and when he arrived, Ecuador did not have this traditional research. There was no cohesion, basically, among academics.
El gobierno del entonces, ya expresidente actualmente, Rafael Correa, comenzó a trabajar con las instituciones de educación del Ecuador para incentivar primeramente el nivel académico de los docentes universitarios, que era bien bajo, y empezar a motivar en ellos, primeramente en ellos, luego los estudiantes, la investigación, la producción científica. Así pasaron los años y fueron entonces, yo trabajé por ejemplo en la Universidad Politécnica Salesiana, que fue, digamos que puedo decir que fue una de las pioneras en esta renovación.
So the former president, Rafael Correa, who actually got his PhD in the US, I don't think it's a coincidence, he wanted to change this, he wanted to improve the quality of education there, and he started to make some reforms to improve the quality of the teaching and the research. He had an experience teaching in the Polytechnic Salesian, it's a Catholic university in Ecuador.
Esto, por supuesto, trajo consigo primero un cambio y una transformación en todo lo que es la plataforma tecnológica, digamos, de la universidad, y en la medida de que los centros universitarios disponían de más o menos economía, podían entonces dar tránsito superior. En el caso de la Universidad Politécnica Salesiana, que es el caso que me corresponde, ¿no? En un periodo aproximado de, digamos, unos 4 o 5 años, ya la universidad cuenta con toda una infraestructura tecnológica que permite a docentes y universitarios dedicarse al área de la investigación. Se crearon cursos de capacitación con la ayuda de muchos académicos españoles que visitaron la universidad, y se creó entonces, se incentivó en los docentes, primero la superación profesional, es decir,
based on the on the case study of the Salesian University, they had the resources, luckily, to make this change. So they invested in the technology to have a platform for them to improve their research, and they also brought consultants from abroad, mostly Spanish universities because of the language affinity.
Primero, lograr que los docentes pasaran de un nivel de enseñanza superior, como le llaman allá, tercer nivel, que viene siendo un bachelor o un licenciado, a un cuarto nivel que tuviera un equivalente a maestría o doctorado. Así, incluso en estos momentos están transitando por ese periodo, pero le agradezco al doctor Otto que me haya invitado a colaborarle en este artículo, porque toda esa experiencia que viví se transmitió a un documento académicamente, porque hoy en día,
Okay. So he's saying that basically the challenge was to invest in helping people who had a bachelor's, which is called licenciatura in the Latin American system, to get masters and doctorates. And then he's saying that basically that research, that case study that he had, the experience, became a paper. So he's basically saying that thank you for participating in the research paper.
Hoy en día la Universidad Politécnica Salesiana, con cuyo trabajé durante 4 años, se ha insertado dentro del ranking de universidades del Ecuador, y eso es una muestra del avance que ha tenido la educación y el contraste que se hizo con los estudios de Japón del año 2008. Se ha insertado, es decir, tiene el segundo lugar en el ranking interno de las universidades en Ecuador y el 400 en el mundo. ¿Sí? Es un ranking bastante lejano, pero por lo menos aparece ya en el ranking de las universidades que antes no aparecía. Y entonces, a nuestro juicio y académicamente hablando, es un logro y un paso de avance que se va dando en la educación superior en el Ecuador. Gracias por estar acá, por escucharnos, y al doctor Otto por invitarnos.
So he's saying that all of this effort, all of these reforms, they eventually led to that university becoming the second top university of Ecuador and to be ranked 400 in the world. which is quite an accomplishment because before that, I don't think there was any Ecuadorian university even in the top rankings. So it was a lot of work, a lot of effort, but they managed to do it. So he's thanking everyone for participating. I'm going to provide a conclusion if it's okay with you. So basically, at the end of the paper, when we compared the Japanese case study with the Ecuadorian case study, we came to the conclusion that yes, government leadership was very important. Obviously, the government needed to provide some mission and vision for all of these reforms. Funding was a key part, undeniably. And one of the challenges for Ecuador was that the government made all of those requirements, all of those changes without providing the appropriate funds at the right time. And that led to a lot of uncertainty for professors, many people leaving academia as a result of those new requirements. So one lesson from the Japanese experience, number one, obviously, is to try to find funds to do it, to attract international students by providing maybe programs, especially at the grad school level, maybe in English, because Ecuador is a very attractive place to study also, and to bring in foreign scholars. Because Japan was very good at that. Like this university, Salesian University, they brought Spanish scholars. They could do the same thing in the public universities. They're working on that right now. I've been involved, for example, in a project with the University of Guayaquil, trying to also help them out in terms of consulting, to see if we can promote more research there between people from abroad and in Ecuador. So basically, in conclusion, reform needs to have clear guidance. It needs to have a clear mission and a vision. Funding needs to be part of the whole strategic planning. You cannot just leave it to chance. And finally, you need technology transfer. That's something that the Japanese experience shows us. They need the know-how, and the know-how is there. There are many scholars who would be willing to help out if the Ecuadorian government is willing to accept that help. Thank you so much for your attention.